Welcome to notes number 3. In these sets of notes, we're going to be talking about two types of cells, prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Then we're going to be taking a closer look inside these cells and looking at the organelles that make up the cell itself. There are two basic cell types, prokaryotes and eukaryotes. Prokaryotes lack any internal compartments or organelles, so you can see a picture of a prokaryote right here. This prokaryote has nothing really inside of it except for DNA that's free floating around here and these little dots that you see. Those little dots are ribosomes. So the only organelles that prokaryotes have are ribosomes. So there's no true nucleus here. An easy way to remember that prokaryotes have no nucleus and no organelles is that pro rhymes with no. Prokaryotes have no nucleus and no organelles. So these are very, very simple organisms that are unicellular, just one cell big, and they usually reproduce asexually just by simply dividing. So the only types of prokaryotes are your bacteria. There's two types of bacteria, regular bacteria like eubacteria and archaea-bacteria. But both types of bacteria are prokaryotes. They love to ask this question. Just think, prokaryotes have no nucleus, they're so simple. Bacteria are one of the simplest organisms that have been around for millions and billions of years. The other types of cells are called eukaryotes. Eukaryotes are the exact opposite. They have a nucleus and they have organelles. Just take a look at this cell right here. It looks a lot more complicated. It has a mitochondria, it has a cytoskeleton, it has centrioles. All of these things right here are organelles that make up the cell. And most importantly, the main difference is that it in fact has a nucleus. You can see the nucleus right here. The nucleus is what holds the DNA inside. So instead of just floating around, it's inside of the nucleus. Now these cells mostly reproduce sexually, but there's also some types of asexual reproduction. They can be either one cell big, unicellular, or they can make up a multicellular organism, like us. I'm not just one big giant cell, I'm made up of many different types of cells. So some unicellular examples of eukaryotes are yeast and protists. So think about the yeast that you use to bake bread. That is a type of cell that is a eukaryote. It has organelles and it has a nucleus. And multicellular examples are plants, animals, and fungi. We're made up of more than just one cell. So here we have the differences highlighted. You can see the similarities are that they both have a plasma or cell membrane, they both have cytoplasm, and they both have DNA. But the main difference is that eukaryotes have a nucleus and prokaryotes have no nucleus. And then look at inside, all of the fancy organelles on this side, and you don't see any of these on the other side. So we're going to take a look at organelles. Some organelles that we just looked at are common to all cells. Every single cell, whether it's a prokaryote or eukaryote, has these things. A cell membrane. A cell membrane you can see on the outside. It's what surrounds a cell and makes sure that it doesn't fall apart. It also provides a barrier so that things can go in and out, but that the cell can block things that it doesn't want to go in. And cytoplasm. Cytoplasm is a fancy word for this jelly-like stuff that's found free floating in a cell. It's what gives the cell shape. But there are some organelles that are only found in certain cells, such as plant cells have specific organelles that are found nowhere else. So for example, let's look at a plant cell right here. A plant cell has a cell membrane just like every single cell has, but they have another boundary called a cell wall, which is located right here. This is an extra layer of support that are found in plants and a lot of other types of organisms, but not us. We do not have a cell wall. We only have a cell membrane. Then there are organelles that function as controlling. The control center is the nucleus. This is like the brain of a cell because it contains the DNA or chromosomes inside of it. So here we have the nucleus and it's zoomed in right here. Inside of the nucleus there would be DNA inside of here, And here we have this smaller ball, which is called the nucleolus. So the nucleus contains DNA and a nucleolus. Here's a real picture of what the nucleus looks like under a microscope. Then there are organelles that function for storing things. There are two types of organelles that store things. One, lysosomes, and two, vacuoles. Vacuoles are just like sacs. They store things like extra water and food and waste. But lysosomes, those are the cool ones. Those are called suicide sacs. They're sacs, but they have enzymes inside of them. And the enzymes are going to destroy whatever is inside of those sacs. So here we have an example of a lysosome, and the enzymes that are inside of it are going to digest or break down this thing. Okay, ribosomes. Ribosomes are these tiny little dots that we see all over the place. And even though they're so tiny, ribosomes are probably one of the most important parts of the cell, because this is where proteins are being made. Proteins are what make up our skin, our hair, our nails, our muscles, our bones. So it's really important that we have something to make these proteins, and ribosomes are where it happens. Then we have things that function for transport, for transporting or moving things around the cell. The main things that function for that is the endoplasmic reticulum, which you see here, and the Golgi apparatus, which you see here. They look very, very similar, but an easy way to tell the difference is that a Golgi apparatus kind of looks like a stack of pancakes, or I think of rolls of fat. And what these basically do is they form vesicles, or vacuoles that are going to be able to move around the cell. So here you have one coming, and it's going to transport things out of the cell, and here we have a vesicle forming that's going to put things into the Golgi apparatus. So they communicate with each other. And we also have things that are going to make energy for our cells. We have chloroplasts and we have mitochondria. Now, chloroplasts are these guys right here. These are found in plant cells and not us, because chloroplasts are what make a plant green. They allow the energy from the sun to be absorbed and transformed into sugar. We can't make sugar, we have to eat it. So we don't have chloroplasts. But we have mitochondria, which look like these rod-shaped organelles here. They have all of these folds, and what they do is they take the sugar that we eat and they make it into a form of energy that we can use, that our cells can use. So these are energy transformers, transforming or changing energy. For support in our cells, not only do we have the cell membrane and cytoplasm, but we also have the cytoskeleton. The cytoskeleton is this network of tubules and sort of what looks like a spider web that helps keep the shape of the cell. So it's easy to remember because skeletons, our skeleton helps us not become a big pile of mush, and a cytoskeleton is a skeleton basically inside of a cell. For movement, we have two types of organelles that help us remove things. Apologize for this popping up. Cilia. Cilia are found in the lining of our trachea, our air pipe, our windpipe, but they're also found on the surface of cells, and they sweep back and forth to move things. So they move debris and bacteria up so that we can either sneeze or cough it out. And some cells have what's called flagella. Flagella are like tails. They whip back and forth. So here you can see a flagella right here, and you see flagella right here. What's commonly known in us, that a cell that has flagella, is sperm. Sperm has this little tail that whips back and forth to move to the egg to make a baby. In order for cells to divide, we have two major structures that are going to help them divide. We have centrioles and centrosomes. You can see them right here. We're not going to focus on them too much because we're going to get to them later on when we learn about cell division in detail. So here we have all of the parts that could be found in a cell all mixed together. It's all the things that are possible. So we have the nucleolus, which is the small ball inside of the nucleus. We have a tail-like structure, flagella. We have a mitochondria, which you can tell it's a mitochondria because it's this rod shaped and it has all these folds inside. We have the Golgi apparatus. Remember, it looks like a stack of pancakes or rolls of fat. We have centrioles right here, which look like these little rods. We have cilia, which are these little hair-like structures that move back and forth. We have the cytoskeleton, which is helping to keep the shape of the cell. We have the endoplasmic reticulum, which you can see here. Ribosomes, which are those tiny little dots that are making proteins. Chromosomes, which are the DNA that's inside of the nucleus. And we have our nucleus itself. So here are all the major organelles that you need to know. Now, if we look at the difference between plants and animals, we can see that plants have chloroplasts, have a cell wall, and have a large central vacuole, which we didn't look at quite yet, but we will in detail. But the two main things that plants have that we don't start with a C, which makes it easier to remember. Chloroplast, cell wall, and you can remember a central vacuole if that helps to remember the third C. Animal cells, us, we do not have chloroplasts and we do not have cell walls. And we don't have one big, large vacuole, we have many small vacuoles. So we have a lot of different storage sacs all over the place, whereas plants have one big, large one. And we also have centrioles for cell division, but plants don't have that. So here we can see those differences. We can see in a plant cell on the right that a cell wall is found in a plant cell. We can see that chloroplasts are found in plant cells, but not in us. And we can also see this large central vacuole. This large vacuole is going to store water and other nutrients, whereas in animals we can see that we have a few vacuoles, but they're very, very small. And we can also see the other difference, that animal cells have a centriole, but we do not, plants do not have that. And that's it.